heavily inspired by what Dave Sim was doing, but at the same time, the natural studio one-upmanship of sort of Pete and I going back and forth in the same room, and it was like both being huge fans of Bruce Lee. It's like, well, what if Bruce Lee was an animal? What's the dumbest animal Bruce Lee could be? And that makes no sense at all to anybody else on the entire planet. As a turtle, and so I think that was really the start of it. So I think if you sort of rolled into what was going on at that time, what Frank Miller was doing, what Alan Moore was doing, what Dave Sim was doing, all of our inspirations from before when we were drawing as kids, we sort of rolled our favorite elements into one story and made it a parody. Again, not thinking that anyone would buy a single copy, and that was a very, very happy accident, I will say.
Yeah. What's your favorite Bruce Lee movie?
Well, it's like Fist of Fury go wrong. In fact, I mean, I was like, I always tell people like, because I love all, Into the Dragon, Fist of Fury, and of course the David Carradine Kung Fu show, and some of the stuff which Bruce, we learned later on Bruce Lee should have had the main role in. But I have to tell you that being such a huge fan of the genre, I love anime and martial arts movies and all that stuff. But it's like when I look at like Fist of Legend,
sure,
it was like, to me, it was like Jet Li's love poem to Bruce Lee, and that was, to me, that was the ultimate perfect martial arts movie. It was just so clever, so well done, and the martial arts level in that is just, in fact, it's funny, when I first sat with Jonathan Eastman on the talking about the new Turtle movie,
right?
And he said, we got to do martial arts. We need stuff like Raid Redemption. We need stuff like really, something that people haven't seen before. And I said, well, you should look at Raid Redemption, of course, but you should look at like Fist of Legend, because Fist of Legend is just the ultimate in skill, directing, acting, everything. It was just a really kind of a perfect film as far as a homage to one of my heroes, Bruce Lee. So
right, yeah. I've seen, you go to these conventions and you draw turtles for fans, and I've seen you say where you would almost identify with Raphael, and that the next character you like to draw off the turtles is Casey Jones. I wanted to see what your affinity with Casey Jones is.
Well, Casey was such an exceptional. He was. I figured. I mean, I see him as it's really the core, where the first human character that we interacted the Turtles with was April O'Neil, of course, and then with Casey, it was such an interesting development because I go back to a time and place where Peter and I were writers, artists, editors. We could do whatever we wanted to story-wise, and so there was no. We do whatever we wanted to. There was no stops and checks and balances. There's no anything. So when around this time, there was a very popular 4-issue microseries become a new trend. And obviously vigilantes as characters were always very popular. There was always some really horrific backstory to, their whole family was killed, their whole village was killed, their whole city was killed, and they took up, wearing spandex and fighting crime. And to me, I said, well, why don't we take the other direction? And what about we had a guy that became a vigilante just from watching too much bad TV? And that was inspired by, Pete Laird's love of, the A-Team and T.J. Hooker and some of these pop shows that he loved. And so I said, he just mixed his costume up of, sweatpants and a shirt, and he's got 2 baseball bats and a hockey mask. And Pete said, wouldn't it be really funny if he had a golf bag where he had a bunch of different weapons in it? And I was like, that was really what made Casey complete. And that was, I think it's a great example of how Pete and I worked together. It was just very much so, give and take, and everything developed around that. And so when I did, when we wrote the Casey, the Raphael one-shot, the 1-issue microseries, parodying the 4-issue, miniseries, it was also to take a character like Raphael, which was kind of the wild card, our Wolverine, if you will, our berserker or guy with the rage issues, but I wanted to compare him to somebody that was crazier than him, that might actually make him look back at himself and go like, well, maybe I'm a little bit crazy because this guy's really crazy. And I think parodying vigilantes, a goofy costume character, and something that helped speak to one of the turtles as we. The idea was with each of the one shots was to define each of the characters, each of the individual turtles a little bit more. So it was a perfect storm that I wish, looking back, I make it sound like we crafted it more cleverly than we did, but when we did it, we just were having fun.
Right.
Also, a story that we thought, well, this is pretty cool, and we had no clue what we were doing, but we had fun.
Yeah. With one of the things that I love about you is that you're so positive about everything, and I mean we're at the site, we're so excited for the new film, but there's as there's so much negative commentary about the film and people nitpicking the characters and people photoshopping the characters in the new film, yet here you are being so positive, reassuring the fans. I mean, why do you think that there's so many people out there that are so critical or so upset about the process of the new film?
Well, it's a scary thing. I mean, to be honest, I have to go back to when I grew up reading comic books. There was always different art teams. There was always different creators, and there was always different writers and different artists. And some I liked. Captain America, Sal Buscema, inked by Vince Coletta, was a great run, but it was, I just love Sal's work. But there was always, then this occasional fill-in issue with Frank Robbins, and I'd be like, it's like, I'd get angry that it wasn't the same Captain America that I was used to.
Right.
But we grew up reading, multiple artists on Fantastic Four and Sergeant Rock and Avengers and X-Men and all that stuff. So we had that sense of there was, always a changing dynamic. And then when, coming to, full circle back to where Peter and I were drawing the original comic books, I mean, we only did, 16 issues together, full-on issues together, where we wrote and drew and did that. We had lots of different guest artists coming in and, giving turtles different looks and different takes on not only how they drew them, how they moved, different aspects of the story, which some of them we found interesting, some of them we found that's not exactly how we do it, but that's actually pretty cool. And then, you sort of take a step forward and go, well, when we started working on the first animated series, we'd written all the black and white comic books for Peter and I. We just wrote them for ourselves. And when we worked on the animated series, we knew that we were changing our characters, in control of our characters, and changing our characters that was going to be geared specifically towards 6-year-olds. And so we made a lot of decisions together, and thoughtfully, and including Peter's the one that came up with the idea of the different colored bandanas.
Sure.
In one of the meetings. So we're now writing for a different kind of audience, but we wanted to sort of at least maintain, the integrity and the feel and the lightness of the character. So, you take that to the animated series, to the the first Turtle movie, which thank goodness we had, guys like Steve Barron and Jim Henson doing the first Turtle movie, to, and you fast forward through the multiple different, the series that Peter did with Fox Kids in the 2000s. We had, we had 288 of the original episodes, multiple live action movies, the animated movie. And then when I started working with IDW on the new, even the new comic series, which was the new comic series was being developed around the same time that Nickelodeon was developing the new animated series. And actually I was consulting on the new Turtles movie at that time. And each one had a very distinctive look and a very distinctive feel. I mean, my goodness, when you look at the IDW series, Tom Waltz's idea of, having April name the Turtles, not Splinter, having Raphael being separated, initially when they first fell into the sewer, and some of that stuff was like, that's scary as hell. Some of the chances that we took, we figured would be crucified by the fans, because we took some pretty big chances. and thank goodness they loved the work that Tom was doing and that we were doing on the initial series, and even what Ciro Neely was doing with the new animated series was more true to the original series, but he took, stylization wise, I mean, he modeled a lot of the original Turtles after the very first cover of Turtles 1, thicker legs and the different wraps and the different stuff, and
right.
Some of the changes that he made there, making Splinter, not 4 feet tall, but 6 feet tall. Making April, 16 years old and doing some of the stuff. Again, that was a perfect opportunity for the fans to just come out and go, oh my God, you destroyed my childhood. But when you look at the heart and soul of the series, the IDW series or the animated series, the heart there, the soul is there, the stories are there, the animation is great, the drawing's great, and so when we approached the new movie, it was in much like the same respect. It's like, well, we're looking back over 30 years of Turtle ideas. How can we make this as cool as we can possibly make it, and give it something that sets it a little bit apart from the new comic series and the animated series, and makes it its own beast, if you will, much like we do the first time we did the first Turtle live action movie with Steve Barron.
Sure.
And so I've read the script, and I've read, the same, I used to laugh because I'd go through the animation studio with Ciro, and Ciro would call me Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's coming through the studio, and but I would look at what they're doing, and I'd be so energized and sort of charged up by what they were doing, and the same with working with Tom on the new series. And so when I sat with Jonathan Leeson and Michael Bay on the movie, the vision was very thoughtful and specific. It wasn't like, hey, here's a way we can make a lot of money, and they wanted to tell a good story. So to me, it's, the positivity comes from, creative people having, I guess, the right heart in the right place, and wanting to do good stuff. And because that's always been, the most important thing is, like, if you do good stuff, hopefully that the fans will come out and support it, and that's where, come back to square one, is that, I wouldn't have the job that I have if I didn't have, the fans that come out and regularly buy the stuff that we're doing, and, let us do all these crazy stories and have such a good time. So, so it's, but, I'm positive in that, I think that people are uncomfortable, with the initial look of the Turtles, but I have the advantage of seeing a bit more deeper on it. So it's something that I like and I embrace, and I hope that the fans will embrace too. So because we've taken some pretty big risks before, so
they've always paid off. Yeah. I go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, it's like, the thing is, it's like, if we've learned nothing from Joss Whedon's Avengers, it's like, don't mess with the. If you, I mean, that was, to me, that was the perfect. I mean, I practically wept in that movie. That was the perfect superhero movie. But so hopefully we'll bring the fans back to a nice place on this one. So.